We're bringing this episode to you in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Class E podcast. This is the podcast that's brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. I am your host, Mary Sturgill. Today's episode is part of our Everyday Entrepreneur segment, in which we talked to folks who have graduated from the Greenville Starts program hosted by the Hill Institute about their stories and how they're doing with their ventures in hopes of inspiring you to start your own venture as well, or to take some steps in starting your own venture. So today we welcome Eva Vega, who is the founder and executive director for Thyme and Play. She is also a veteran. Eva, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Thyme and Play, spelled T-H-Y-M-E.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about Thyme and Play. What is Thyme and Play?
So Thyme and Play is a nonprofit that focuses on creating inclusion and awareness initiatives in the local community by providing custom events for families living with special needs or disabilities. And that includes adults, children, and veterans.
Your background, you have a culinary degree,
I do.
and then you also went back and got a nonprofit degree. So are you marrying those two degrees with this new venture?
I think it ended up being that way technically, but originally I'm a mother to two kids with autism, so I ended up marrying the culinary degree to something that I could have sustaining my children's future, and it kind of just married each other like that.
Yeah. I love what you're doing. Talk to us about your entrepreneurial journey and how you went from, okay, I'm having this culinary degree, to better help my own children, to now with Thyme and Play helping other families.
So it's a crazy story, because when I first started, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be in business for myself. And I was just going through learning we had a child with autism, but I didn't think the two could pair. And I threw in my name in a hat for a Cornell program for entrepreneurship for veterans. And I threw it in with a Japanese American fusion restaurant, like fake business plan. And when I was there, like the first day I was there, the director of the program was talking to all the class, and he looked at me and he said, "That's not your heart." He said, "This is baloney. What is it that you really care about?" And I don't know how he picked me out of the group and why, but it stuck with me. And I was like thinking, and I was like, well, I just found out my son has autism. There's no programs for him. And my family loves cooking. So maybe I can mix those two. And he was like, "You got it, make something." So in like a 7-day week, I had a business plan in front of me with my intentions for what Thyme and Play would soon evolve into being a nonprofit.
How many years ago was that?
That was 2014. Okay. And then our nonprofit came into existence in 2018. So it was a 4-year window of trying to figure out what I really wanted to do with Thyme and Play.
And now it is what it is.
And now it is what it is, yeah.
So I know you guys were going gung-ho before COVID hit and having all kinds of events and partnering with all kinds of community partners. Let's talk about the community partners. How do you find those? So
a lot of the community partners we found, it was just going and asking. So we found Sustaining Way first, and Sustaining Way was a huge blessing to us in the beginning. They provided us with food and all kinds of things. And we just stumbled across it. We drove by it and I was like, oh, let's stop. So we stopped and we talked to them. And then Sustaining Way introduced us to First Baptist, who we still partner with to this day. And we've had a slew of other partnerships like Upstate Warrior Solution. And I was involved with them because I'm a disabled veteran. And like South Carolina Autism Society, we did some stuff with. Travelers Rest, Art Crawl, we did some stuff with. So it's kind of just being in the right place at the right time and making sure that you have your communications open so that that opportunity can come and find you. You and I have talked about this as the mother of an autistic child, that it's been frustrating sometimes to go out in public and see people watching you, and that kind of thing. Does Thyme and Play help alleviate some of that stress from others like you? So the goal is not just to alleviate the stress on the mothers, but to alleviate the stress on the kids. So a lot of the times they're being put into situations where they can't be themselves. They're in therapy all the time, and a lot of those therapies are, this is how you're supposed to act when you're in public, and this is what you're supposed to say when someone says this to you, and those aren't natural most of the time.
Right.
So our goal is that every event that we create this safe environment that if you have to stim, go ahead and stim.
Yeah.
That will, everybody else will be fine. If it takes you a minute to jump in a corner, go jump in a corner.
Right.
But it's impactful because, I mean, me being a disabled veteran myself, there's issues that I have when I go out.
Right.
And I want those issues to be accommodated. And sometimes a small accommodation, like not sitting me by the bathroom, ends up turning into a big deal because the server doesn't want to move you to a different side of the restaurant. So it's just being like real cognizant of what are the needs for that individual person. And then if I anticipate that there might be a problem with that person sitting in that location, then what do I have in place that I can anticipate as the host of the event that the mother and the father doesn't have to anticipate?
Yeah.
Because then that relieves the stress off of them. If I can say, oh, look, he's getting agitated, then I can go over there and redirect, or I can go over there and give them something to do that just takes the stress off for the moment.
And I know for some of your events, you have volunteers who are therapists who actually help out at those events too.
So most of our sensory events have a minimum of 3, either speech therapist, ABA therapist, occupational therapist, or physical therapist.
Yeah.
At a minimum. So like we usually have 3 on staff.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. What events do you have coming up that people might be interested in?
So the first event that you're going to see, or you're probably going to hear our names in, is the First Baptist event in downtown Greenville, or on Cleveland Street, I think it is. They're doing a respite caregivers night. So we're going to assist them and try to help them create a sensory space that's, going to alleviate some of the stress that their event's going to create. But the first event you're going to see from us officially going back into this post-COVID is going to be February. We're going to do a night of chocolate.
And what is that?
A night of chocolate is one of our favorite events. It's a 3-course meal that we provide for the caregivers, and we deck it out like if they're at a fine dining establishment, like those places you pay like $200 for a plate. We'll deck it out like that, and then at the same time we usually have a sensory space so that if their adult or their child that they normally provide respite for, if they don't want to participate in the actual meal, then we'll do activities and we'll do things with them while the caregivers get that date night.
And are you able to separate by age groups when you do that?
It's based mostly on the ability of the adult or the child, right? So if obviously I don't want to put an adult who is functional into a room with a whole bunch of little kids who might not enjoy that space with a whole bunch of kids. So it's really dependent on the needs of that person.
Gotcha.
But we can create different areas for different things depending on who's coming.
Right. I know COVID affected you guys tremendously. What happened when COVID hit?
The first thing that we thought of was, the ability to actually do these face-to-face events. It was kind of like almost impossible. Yeah. We didn't have really that interaction with our families anymore. And it didn't feel safe. I mean, I'm immunocompromised. My son and my daughter are both autistic. Putting them in that scenario, risking COVID, it was a big deal. Yeah. So we thought it was best for everyone if we just kind of delayed Time and Play. And for a little while, I was going to close Time and Play. I thought it was over, but I felt like the Lord was telling me not to. So I was reluctant to start this year, but He's kind of been nudging me, and He's giving me a new vision. So in 2023, we're gonna still keep some of those same things we were doing before, but we're gonna do more family involvement and more outdoor activities to where we're not risking people's health.
Oh yeah, that's good. So you can have that space. Yeah. I remember when the first day of Greenville Starts, we were in the same cohort, the first cohort, and we were all introducing ourselves. And you said, I'm at the point where I want to stop my business, right? And because I'm about to cry because it was so touching that the day when you talked about it, because COVID just made it impossible for you to operate. And
one of the most impactful days of Greenville Starts was, I forgot his name, but he teaches here. Yeah. And he came in and he was like, we're going to write a letter to your business. We're breaking up. And I was
that was Ross McLean. Yeah, that was a good session. Yeah.
I kept that letter because I was like, this is exactly how I feel. This is where I'm at. Like, I love you. I put my heart and soul into you. And I feel like the reward isn't there, and it's almost impossible. I'm fighting against a constant current. Right. And it just allowed me to get all my frustrations and all of the things that I struggled with in my business out. Yeah. And then that opened up a new opportunity to say, okay, I forgive you.
It really did, because just watching you, and I've known Eva for, well, gosh, several years now, but just watching you from that first day to the last day, you were so rejuvenated in your business and where you could take it, even though COVID is still not gone, right? I just love watching that, and I just want to commend you on that, because I think it's amazing. And I mean, all of us entrepreneurs, every entrepreneur on the show that I've ever had on the show has had, those difficult times where they thought they were going to give up, right? Yeah. And then something happens, and you made yourself go to Greenville Starts and got the rejuvenation that you needed.
Well, even the Greenville Starts, the way that happened was, like I said, it's divine placement. It's letting yourself be open to what comes. And I was not looking for Greenville Starts. Greenville Starts came and found me and said, hey, what do you think of this program? And was asking me all these questions. And I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to help. That's great. And then he was like, why don't you just do it? You don't even have to pay. And I was like amazed, because we had just shut down everything. Like there was no money in the account for those type of things. And even in those moments, like Greenville Starts, just, they don't know what they did for Time and Play. Like that Greenville Starts opportunity was a restart of Time and Play. And it wasn't just like, here, I'm gonna get you all hyped up and drop you. It's kind of like, what else do you need from me? And they're still pouring into our lives to this day. And it's been, what, almost a year?
They're in the third cohort now. So and it was fall of 2021 when we were in there. What's been the most rewarding part of this entrepreneurial journey for you?
I think I've kind of rediscovered who I am, because for a long time I was in the military, and I did a job that I felt like the purpose of my job was really great. And without me, then, the U.S. wouldn't be safe type thing, right? Yeah. And it was one of those jobs that they instilled a lot of pride in you, because the consequences of your job was so great. And then when I left the military, I just kind of felt like I had no more purpose. Like, was my purpose just to be a mom? And I say that, like, don't judge me, being a mom is great. But, I went from having to wake up at any hour of the day and having to leave on an alert vehicle, not knowing where I'm going, to just a mundane, like, I'm waking up, I'm making breakfast, I'm making lunch, and, my kids obviously need me. And there were different stresses with that, but it was just like my purpose. I felt like it was gone. And in this entrepreneurial journey, I've realized not only how important it is for me to be a mother and an entrepreneur, but how important it is for me to create something that'll keep feeding other families. Because the need is so great. Like, I know that just in the last few months, I'm trying to find programs for my kids, and they all stopped. I'm not the only one that stopped because of COVID. And I feel like God has given me the opportunity to do these things for other people. So it's given me a different type of purpose. And I would say it's almost with the same equivalency of expectation. And I think that's what's kind of rejuvenated my spirit.
Oh my God, you're so inspiring. Do you have an entrepreneurial philosophy or mantra that you kind of say to yourself to keep going?
That I can say on camera? No, I would say that if you don't know something, find someone who does. Because every part of this journey, I started in the blue ocean. And I was waiting by myself until someone came along and handed me a raft that changed into a boat, that changed into a building. Like, if it wouldn't have been for the mentors that have been placed in my life, and for the people who constantly feed into my life, then I don't know if this would still be a success.
Well, and I want to add too that because I know you, I know that it wasn't like you were sitting there, waiting for someone to help you. You went out and you sought people out and you asked questions to people and you did your research. You were a really good researcher in finding things out.
Thanks.
And so
I'm persistent.
right, exactly. And so it wasn't just like, oh, I'm waiting to somebody to come mentor me. You initiated all of that stuff, right? So I want to make sure our viewers understand.
Well, in a sense, but at the same time, like, you make yourself real vulnerable when you do that.
Yeah.
So I have learned that, just because someone says no doesn't mean that that's the end of it.
Exactly.
But you have to put yourself in those vulnerable places.
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a waiting game because you're like, hey, sharks, I'm here.
Right.
And then if one bites, yes.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, and I call that planting seeds, because if I talk to somebody and it's a no, it doesn't mean it's going to be a no forever. Right. And even if it's a no for that person, then I have worked on my pitch or worked on my conversation with them, and I've become better at presenting my idea or presenting what I'm trying to present. So I think that's really good advice. So speaking of advice, any other advice that you have for entrepreneurs out there?
I would say, okay, so I've had a few mentors in my life that have looked at what I've presented and said, this is garbage. This is absolute garbage. But because it's you, we're going to help you. Yeah. And, I could have gotten offended. And I could have said, you know what, screw you guys. You don't see the vision and I don't need you. Yeah. But the truth is, you can't think you can do it all yourself. And you have to be willing to trust other people's judgment, even if you don't agree. So putting yourself in a place where you can look at a person and respect them for their position and honor them in their position, I feel like those are the moments when you'll see that it trickles down to you. Like you'll get an inspiration, or they'll tell you something you never thought of, and that'll like change your whole business. Yeah.
And you'll start thinking about things from a different way.
Yeah. So being open to criticism, I think I always approach everyone when I talk to them and I'm like, look, tell me if it sucks. And I don't even want you to if you don't use a curse word in the first 3 sentences, I don't trust you. Like, you better tell me you don't like it and everything you don't like it, because I'd rather hear that first. Right. Because you're not going to get better if you stay so tunnel visioned into what you're looking at that you can't see the bigger picture. Yeah.
And sometimes look at that bigger picture from a different angle a little bit, and that makes the light bulb come on in you. Yeah. Sometimes I think too. So what's next for you and Thyme and Play?
Well, let's see. We have a 5-year plan. A new business plan is being created right now, so I'm working on that. And we bought property that we are going to be doing a lot of events on. So now we're setting it up we have some community gardens we're working on now to get them established for next year. And we're trying to do everything in-house now, so that we're not having to rent out spaces as much. But it's going to be a lot of work. It's 13 acres, so it's a lot of hard physical labor first. But I'm hoping that within the next 2 to 3 years, we'll see the fruits of those labors, and then we'll be able to really bring Thyme and Play out to its fruition.
Yeah, I love that. And so is Thyme and Play is a nonprofit, yeah?
Yes.
So people can donate?
Yes.
Yes. So how do they get in touch with you if they want to volunteer or donate?
Thymeandplay.org is our website. You can call me at 864-360-3920. That's my cell phone number. You'll speak with the executive director. Or you can email us at thymeandplay@gmail.com.
I want to just tell everybody, I've eaten your all's food. And by the way, her husband is a chef as well.
Yes, and he's our main chef.
I just want to say the food is so good. Just get involved. Go get, a meal and volunteer and do whatever you need to do to help these folks, because what they're doing is amazing. Eva, I just want to thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I was so nervous at first.
It's so good to sit here and chat with you. Remember, if you or someone you know has an idea or a business venture that they need to get off the ground, Greenville Starts is a great place to do that. Google Greenville Starts and Furman, and the first thing that pops up in that Google search is the Greenville Starts program, and get yourself into the next cohort or get your friend into the next cohort so that they can kind of be inspired and meet the right people and get the right contacts. I mean, we learned everything in there, from the legal issues to how to fundraise and get the funds to launch our business. And of course, the camaraderie with your cohort is priceless. The current cohort is full, then sign up for the next cohort, guys. It's that important for you and your business. And that does it for this episode of the Class E podcast. Remember, this podcast is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at Furman University and the Communication Studies Department. It is produced by our student producers, Caleb Patterson and Eliza Pollich, which is a true representation of the Furman Advantage. And you can catch the podcast 2 ways now. We're on YouTube now, and of course you can listen wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill. Until next time, dream big.